Matt.
Hello, welcome to Code It Live.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be joining us from. Bright and early for Ed and me here on a Monday. So this is going to be the official hangout of the big nerds here, pretty much this morning. So you likely know Ed and me. You're tired of me, us, but we brought some friends who are way smarter than we are to show us and teach us a few more things about Sitefinity and test automation. So we got Jonathan Reed here. Jonathan, how are you?
I'm doing well. It's a different kind of smart, Sam. I mean, we all got our things, right?
Oh, you are smart. And then Peter, how are you?
Yeah. Good morning, Sam, and thanks for the nice words here. Let's see if we're smart enough for this Twitch session today. Yeah.
So Peter is the only one across the pond. John, me, and Ed are pretty much all three of us are U.S. But Peter is joining us from beautiful Sofia, Bulgaria. So we are here on screen through the magic of technology, and Ed and me have absolutely nothing to share. Just learn today. So, what are we doing today, folks?
Hopefully, a couple things. I think, hopefully if you ended up here, you probably already know what Sitefinity is, but Sitefinity is Progress's content management system. If you're familiar with that particular landscape, this is often used to produce websites, intranets, portals. You can even use it headlessly to drive your mobile application and a lot of other activities in between, right? In this endeavor, you often, especially if you're creating, websites, web pages, portals, whatever, have a use to test it, right? Or hopefully, keep our hair a little less gray and do some sanity checks, API checking, this type of thing. That's where Progress Test Studio comes into play. And again, my good friend Peter, who's been doing that a lot longer than me, will show some magic along with, I'm going to share my experience using our demonstration website. And I actually use Test Studio to keep my sanity for the most part. There's other problems there, but different session, right?
So, John, before we
Yeah.
dive into Sitefinity and all the goodness with test automation, a couple of fun facts that I sometimes come across with Sitefinity. It's very popular. It is very complicated but very easy to use content management system, but it's also a lot more about than just content.
Mhm.
It's about digital experiences and enabling folks across a variety of form factors. And we forget like how popular sometimes like Sitefinity is, like how many things that we come across every
Right.
day just run on Sitefinity. I'm a bit of a car guy, and I'm always enthusiastic to see some of the big auto manufacturers running their things on on Sitefinity. We were in Dubai, UAE this summer, and it's known for big constructions, and it looks like there are some really big malls and really big buildings and just big enterprises in Dubai just running entirely on Sitefinity. I'm just always
Right.
curious to see all the things that are running.
Yeah, I mean, we touch every industry vertical there is. Financial services, higher education, manufacturing. I mean, you name it, we got a site using Sitefinity or other things. Again, mobile applications and everything in between. So, yeah, it definitely is recognized for its ease of use from a non-technical user aspect. But the reason I fell in love with it first was as a developer, right? It was something that I could still flex my developer muscle, right? And show off really cool features, use dev tools, wink, wink, right? Obviously, another awesome Progress product. And then again, because Progress really focuses on enabling developers, I was able to bundle up a great experience for people who don't want to know. Well, I mean, not that they don't want to know technology, but have no interest in knowing the nitty gritties of it. Yeah, what is HTML, CSS? I just want to write some content. I want to publish it. I want to just know that it works, right? Those are definitely areas that we are recognized in all those fancy quadrants and waves and all those fun areas. So definitely good points.
Yeah. Well, I woke up super early. I know it's just 10 a.m. for me, but I'm starting to get a little hungry for lunch. I know you always bring Indian food or other web apps that kind of tickle our appetite. So what you got?
That's right. Yeah, yeah. As I sort of alluded to earlier, one of our demonstration sites that we often use for Sitefinity, and I'll get my screens a rolling around here, is a site called Coriander Lane. It is a fictitious restaurant-based company. And yeah, we display some food. So the only thing I typically ever apologize for is I hope you're not too terribly hungry. And, as you might see here, we got a farmer's
hold on for a
omelet this
second.
morning. Yeah.
Hold on.
What?
Ed, bring up
What?
John's screen, please.
Oh, how dare
Yep.
you? There it
There
is.
you go.
Oh, all right. As promised, we're going to meet Sam's appetite for probably not so great for us food, but in this case, we got some Death by Chocolate, fruit parfait, and a farmer. Not a bad rounded course selection today, but as mentioned, as a Sitefinity developer, we put together this demonstration kit, and we often, much like our customers, go through upgrades. We do all the time, right? At least 3 to 4 times a year for our major patches and releases. During that process, some things may change, right? We may change the version of dev tools that we're using, and I want to, verify some things there. There may be some APIs that are deprecated, and again, we just want to make sure things work, right? Obviously, we can have boots on the ground, clicking around stuff, doing things. Let's be honest, that's a lot of work. And that's where really Test Studio can come in for a run and a play. I mean, it's so simple. We're going to show it off in a couple different ways, as mentioned, to really just look at this page and be like, what do I want to make sure is there, right? Kind of step one. Well, we may often refer to this as smoke, or I like to call them sanity checks on my behalf, right? I want to make sure I'm not doing the banging my head on the desk scenario because I just did something, right? Or maybe I am making code changes, which is one of the things we're going to outline here in a second. And I want to run that test to ensure that code change hasn't affected any visual aspect of my application. So we're actually going to test this homepage in a different version of it. And see if it goes well or not, and see what it's going to take for us as a developer maybe to fix it. But yeah, I mean, so that's kind of where we sit. Smoke testing, again, like I said, vanity testing, functional testing. You know, it's something like let's take a look at a complex form in Sitefinity. We can test this, right? We can input data. We can make sure the validation errors are showing up in the way we expect it. We can go all the way through it. We can submit it. Do we get the success message? Does it take us to the appropriate URL? Again, really focusing in on the core aspects of our business, just ensuring as a developer that, well, I didn't break anything, right? Not that we ever do, right? We never make a development mistake. So these are a lot of the core functionalities I use it for. Again, in my testing type scenario, yeah, I do a Sitefinity upgrade. The first thing I do is I run a suite of tests against my site to make sure that nothing's gone awry or gone wild. So that's kind of where I sit in that aspect. I don't know. What do you think? Do we show some stuff? What do you think?
Well, so let's back up a step. So when you
Sure, yeah.
are pushing out, an update, do you mean it's like a Sitefinity, framework
Oh, sure.
update, or you're just, rolling out any updates to the forms or the pages that you maintain, or is it
Good
both?
question. I mean, it could be any of those for that matter. I mean, definitely you're going to do it when you upgrade the Sitefinity application itself, right? But it could be I'm just working on some code. I'm adding in some new features and functionality. I want to make sure that it meets an appropriate set of steps and gives me the same output every time, right? So it could be, yeah, my functional work as a developer, but it could be as simple as we did a product update, so a Sitefinity update. I want to run it against my staging server to make sure, my form, my contact form, my custom business logic that I built a widget for, and a widget is one of our representation ways in Sitefinity, are functioning the way we expected. Because if I release something that isn't functioning, we got a different problem, right? Now it's panic, and nobody likes panic, right? Unless you're watching
Yeah.
zombie movies, but that's not what we're doing today.
Okay, so you're still in your safe zone. You're running this on localhost. We see.
I am. Yeah.
How would you go about testing whether it's okay or not?
Sure. So again, we'll go into some more of the depths of how tests are put together, but I have a simple test here.
No, hold on. This is Test Studio. You got to tell us a little bit more. Maybe
Oh,
Peter can
well,
step in. What is Test
yeah,
Studio?
we're gonna do the easy parts right now, and then we'll dive into more of the depths a little bit later. But this
Okay.
is the Test Studio UI. I have a recorded test here. The basic function of this test is to navigate to a URL, which is our home page. It's to find an element on the page, extract text from the element. So, for example, if we go back to our home page here, it's going to find one of these food items, say farmer. It's going to find the first one. It's going to extract the text farmer's omelet. It's going to click through, and it's going to ensure that the text matches the previous page that it clicked through, right? This is more of a data-driven test, but this really shows off the dynamic functionality. So as a content management system, we're always updating our content, right? So it's not necessarily directly applicable for it to say, does this say news article 1? And then the next page, does it say news article 1? Because I'm writing news articles once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week. So I actually take the text from the thing I clicked on and I confirm it to make sure that this element here matches that particular text, right? Exactly. It's got to match exactly. If it doesn't, something went wrong. And so we recorded that test through just the point and click methodology of Test Studio, which we'll get into the depths earlier or later. We could do it in reverse order. I don't even know what time frame we're in. We're at spatial time recognition.
Why not do it earlier?
I mean, we'll do a little, well, anyway. So yeah, basic steps here: extracts the text from the element that we're clicking on, and then again, confirms that the H1 on the next page matches exactly. We're going to execute this in the Edge Chromium browser. You can see that here. We have many ways to execute tests: headlessly, Chrome. We'll talk a little bit more about headlessly as I run this in an Azure DevOps pipeline. So you can have it as part of your CI/CD release process. So after maybe an Azure deploy, you say, okay, it's done, execute my test, pat on the back because I didn't break anything. I don't have to wear the dunce cap, right? Nobody wants that one for breaking the build, right? So lots of different ways to execute it. You can record in both Chrome and Edge and Firefox as well, whatever you prefer. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and execute this test in Edge Chromium, and let's see what happens. So again, the goal here is that it's going to click on that link, take the text, and you saw it said give it a title. That was my very creative food item here on my local host, and then it's going to confirm that on the next page. It has to match exactly. So here it's opened up the Chrome Edge browser. I'm going hands off here, right? It's going to do all its magic on its own. No smoke and mirrors here. It failed. Did anybody quickly catch why it failed? I know it was a super fast test, and we're going to go look at the page again. But
so give it
the wrong food.
Was it the wrong food, or actually there's something else going on here? As I was doing my development, I made a mistake. I got 2 quotes here. However that happened, right? Maybe I was adding a class to something. Visual Studio likes to autocomplete stuff for us all the time.
Sam, have you been trying React again?
Yes. Maybe maybe it was Angular today, but who knows? So yeah, it didn't match exactly. So the way I wrote the test is that whatever it clicked through, and it opened this in a little different I'm going to open incognito because I actually clear the browsing, so it's not using any of my Sitefinity personalization. So it opened it up like this, right? It should match exactly. Give it a title. When I clicked through, it did not. It had a space and 2 extra quotes in here. So now as either the developer, it could be content authoring related, kind of depends on the situation. I know it's not content authoring related because of how Sitefinity works, right? Because of its dynamic nature, the title is the title, right? It should be the same wherever. So I'm going to look elsewhere for the problem not being content entry, but being maybe something code related. In this case, it's a view file. And if I look into this view file, and we're not going to go, and this is Visual Studio, right? I'm not going to go into all the inner workings of how this works right now. We'll follow up later if you guys are curious about it. But basically, King, my wonderful cat here, thinks that I need to remove these. And maybe that's what happened, right? Maybe he stepped on the keyboard. It happens all the time. I call it the kitty keys, you know. Did you know spacebar in Teams turns on your camera? Keep that in your note pocket. Anyway, the extra quotes got here. However they got here, who knows? Let's remove them, right? Let's save this template and let's execute the test again. All right, so we're just going to execute the same test. And again, no magic here. I'm going to run the test, hands off. And assuming everything goes well, it's going to pass the particular test, right? So we're still going to execute in the Edge browser. It's going to click, give it a title. I see visually that it's there. Now we do the happy dance, right? Everything worked, right? Now this is a pretty simple fix, but obviously if there's more complicated steps to the test, there may be other things to look at. But this is what I would probably refer to as a smoke test, or I really do like to call them sanity tests. Is everything functioning the way that I initially set it up? And we will go into how some of these steps are recorded and how easy that is. I think, Peter, you're going to do a little bit of that for me, or you want me to do it?
Yes, sir. I could ease your life a lot. A little bit later or further, depending on how time falls in either direction. So no worries about it.
Yeah. Let's dive into that. So we'll go with the ease of creating some steps earlier. So me as a Sitefinity developer, I created this wonderful UI, right? And again, we'll go into how the steps are recorded in a little bit. I then say, okay, element here should match every time, right? And in my case, I even made it dynamic by literally extracting the text from the HTML and then making sure that the next page has it. Now, I haven't refreshed this page yet, but just to show you, it should then update. Now, this case, we have some browser cache going on. So you can even do things like, clearing cache and doing some other stuff there as well. So again, UI testing, making sure things are functional in the way that we expected. All right, so here's that one. You can see now Farmer's Omelet also removed it. And that's one of the beauty natures of Sitefinity is that template then fixes all of those pages. I may test all of those elements on there and they all would have failed at that particular point in time because they all had that extra, that text, that content information in there. So lots of fun stuff going on there. And the tests are really unlimited. We have, quite a few tests in our particular application where we're testing a bunch of different pages, food and menu items. We kind of do a similar test there, but we look for the visual representation of those things to match. News, again, really focusing on the dynamic nature of Sitefinity. We really actually have no idea maybe what the content might be, but we expect the text when we click on it to match the next page, right? And that's, again, a CMS-related topic of interest, right? I know the title has to match on the next page for a particular purpose. We can extract stuff. I mean, this is just really scratching the surface of the capabilities. So then, let me stop here. You got you confused yet, Sam?
Yeah,
or Ed?
I am easily confused, as you know.
Yeah, well,
so I saw the test runner, including Edge.
Yeah.
Chromium. Did I see Firefox in there too?
You sure did. I happen to have Firefox on my machine, but yeah.
Oh, nice.
Let me click on the right buttons there. There we go. There's Firefox. Even the good old friend IE.
Oh boy.
Yeah, your best bud. All of our best buds. Any web developer's best friend there. Let's target IE6 in our style sheets.
No? There's a service we need to launch. It's called like HAS, which is Hugs as a service. If you're still having to support IE.
That's right.
But right. I see headless as well, and I know Peter is going to talk about it because that is magical pixie dust stuff. But we'll wait for Peter to cover that. But here it's so you're going to talk about how you recorded this, or
I'm going to show you one other thing that I do again, just as a Sitefinity developer, somebody who is working in the Microsoft stack, right? So I'm using obviously a repo to store my code, right? Sitefinity code. As part of that repo, I have my tests, right? They're another project, right? And then after my deployments, I execute these tests, right? So I'm going to show you just a couple of the last tests that I've run in a Azure pipeline. Again, this is fully documented, but as a Sitefinity developer, again, working in the Microsoft stack, I'm using DevOps, right? Azure DevOps. That's where I'm hosting all of my both Sitefinity code and my Test Studio code. and I'm executing tests, right? So here's one of my last runs of the same test that you saw me running locally. So my life cycle is new feature, new feature, new feature, right? Run tests, green light locally, promote code to next environment, right? Sort of again, continuous integration, continuous deployment pattern. And now in my case, we're doing mostly functional and UI based testing. It can do more than that, right? And as you can see on my last run, I only have one test that's passing. So we can look, and this is just the output of some of the value add of using DevOps can give to you. So here's like the summary of this build in this run. It was run yesterday at 10 in the morning, right? We never stop here at Progress. We're always going. And then the test, right? So we output the results of the test. And as you can see, my homepage was failing. My dynamic, again, I'm not doing something right here. And so that's a trigger for me as a developer to go and start investigating, right? Maybe the deployment didn't succeed. Maybe, there's a lot of different steps in arenas that you could be looking into on why you might be looking for other things. And actually, let me check one more box here. I'm going to show a filter. But my simple web test was passing, so no error messages, anything else. You can dive into the details here. And in this case, it doesn't seem to be able to find a particular element. So that's cause for an investigation for me as a developer, right? The business team could have access to this as well, right? So my boss looks at this and, sends me a Teams message and says, "What are you doing here, John? Like, would you break this stuff?" No, whatever. So again, you can grant access to this type of stuff, really high value. You can look through, all your different runs of it. I've even added a new test, along the way. So I can take a couple steps back here, look at the tests here. Again, they're going to be failing. I know this. Maybe it's intentional, maybe it's not. But you can, again, look through the situation, see what's going on. You can see which build was failing, right? And you can really narrow it down to what might be happening. And again, functional type testing. Is my form working the way it's supposed to? Again, the business critical, important pieces of your website or intranet, whatever. You could even do logins with this type of stuff. This is what you're testing. And I ran a button and you can exit. I mean, you saw me execute that test in 10 seconds, right? You have a collection of 25 tests. You can run those in a matter of a few minutes versus me as just a basic human, right? Can take me an hour or two or more each time. And then who knows if you're going to get accurate results from that type of situation. So this is how I kind of keep my sanity in the Sitefinity realm when I'm working with my own demonstration environments as I go through, again, some of my own functional changes. Like, hey, I often do POCs for customers. I might do a quick, run, a couple tests to make sure it works the way I expect it to every time, execute those, and then I'm working into my demo, right? And then again, over and over, repetitive process. We know it's going to be the same every time.
Yeah, this is very cool, but you shouldn't be surprised. I have questions because I'm confused.
We have answers.
Okay, so you started off showing your app, your website running locally.
That's right.
And you had a test case that was recorded in Sitefinity, and you are in a Test Studio, and that you ran that against your local host as well.
That's right.
Now let's talk through the steps that you took to get it from here all the way into Azure pipelines. So you mentioned you have your tests in a separate project. Could you keep it in the same project in Visual Studio or same solution?
You could probably work it into the same solution if you really wanted to. Kind of a business operative, organizational type thing.
Sure.
It's probably not super impactful either way, but you could definitely work it in as part of the solution. Okay. And then kind of one of the other beauties that I really glazed over, and which you may be coming to ask, is how did I do it on a different URL, right? So this actually executed on a completely different URL. It's actually using our first environment in Sitefinity Cloud, which is our staging environment, right? So it actually used this environment here. So completely different URL. There's one other benefit to Test Studios. You can create what we call test lists. And so I actually have 3 different test lists. one for my local, which is the one that I iterate on most often, right? Because it's local. But then I have another list, actually has more tests in it than the local one here. And then I even have a third one here for content staging, and could even have another one for production if I wanted to as well. And it's quite simple. It's really literally the exact same tests. All we're doing is changing one element of these tests to use a different URL. So here I just changed what we call the base URL. So my paths are all relative when I recorded them, a couple small steps there. And now all I do is change the base URL. And now I'm reusing the same tests across, in this case, 3 different environments.
Okay, so your tests were in a separate project that's checked into GitHub.
Yep.
Then when you open up Azure Pipelines, like how does the Test Studio configurations of like this test use this base URL translate over to Azure?
Yeah, I think that was going to be my question, Sam. Where's the test runner executing from?
Magic. Yeah, it's actually, yeah, great question.
With enough abstraction, everything is magic.
Yeah. Oh, of course. Auto magically, it is happening, right? That's a word. Yeah, a small amount of configuration through an Azure pipeline. So we're using an Azure hosted build service, right? We actually get the runtime from an artifact that I'm hosting here, so I can keep it up to date and whatever. It's called the Art of Test Runner. So basically, I download it from my artifact. I install it, the runtime here. I then execute my test. I guess I can click into these. And again, this is super well documented on the docs portal for Test Studio. And then I execute the list. So right here, based on the name of the test that I'm running, right here is the one that's called staging. And the way I've configured the test in Test Studio was it uses a particular base URL for each one of these different tests. So maybe as I promote the project to another environment, I might then execute the test with the content staging, which is the next higher environment in my process, right? And of course, the local one uses localhost. And then doing some publishing of the test results, and then publishing it to an artifact so I can visually see it in the output of the pipeline run.
Okay. Trick question, maybe.
Perfect.
Say your first screen of your app is a login screen. You need credentials. It's behind a firewall, and somebody gets in, and then they can start. So your test suite, test case, needs to be able to enter those credentials. Is there a way you could, make them dynamic and make them like keys, like in Azure Vault, so you're not, exposing sensitive things in your test scripts?
Maybe Peter can answer that one a little bit better for me. I think the answer is yes, but I'll let him dive into that one a little bit deeper.
Actually, John, I can give you a quick hint. It's always the answer is yes, right? No matter what the guys ask you.
Yeah,
it's always yes, and I'm not even joking, by the way. I like to also answer like that because whatever you cannot do with the out-of-the-box features, built-in features of Test Studio, you can do it with a little bit of magic and coding, or in the case with the Azure DevOps Vaults configuration, right? Which reminds me that as a quick note here, the relying on a .NET framework, which is the heart of Test Studio, right? It's our own proprietary framework. It's built on top of .NET. Actually, indeed, you can unleash your coding skills, reference whatever .NET namespace you would like, and you can use, and you can achieve anything that cannot be done via the code. This said, Test Studio also has a built-in capability, built-in feature to either hide the credentials so that they're not visible by anyone on the team that uses that, or mask them, or even encrypt them, right? Forever, like you cannot decrypt them in any case. So this is definitely possible. And as far as the question of inputting different credentials in bulk, this is also possible by means of a few cool features in Test Studio, whether it could be a data-driven feature or a test step or whatever, something that we could talk a little bit further during the session.
Okay. One more question. Like John is not surprised. Like I'm always confused. Um, this may have to do with how you have things set up in Azure, but your test cases are saying go to this base URL, fire off this app, and check if this is true. What's running it? Like, do you spin up a VM, or how does what's the test runner that knows how to go pull up a browser? Is it a machine that it's using, or is it a VM
Sure.
that it pulls up every time?
Yeah, in this case, with an Azure pipeline, we're using an Azure hosted runner. So in this case, an Azure hosted agent to use the specific terms here, and then the Test Studio installer then does the other magic of making sure that everything else is needed there. Now, in the case of a remote runner, headless is our option here. So this is executed the test in the headless mode, whether it's Chrome or Edge in this particular case. But there is also Test Studio Server that you could have it running on a schedule and other activities. Peter's probably surprised I'm so good at this. He's like, "You're taking my job away, dude. Like, what's going on here?"
Hold on for just one second here, John.
Sure.
Full Schnabel, our good friend, is in the chat room. Firefox, we got you covered. Yeah, we got Firefox. Yeah, we can do that. Yeah.
Yep. So let me pop back in there. Yeah, I could execute it. Yeah, Firefox. I'm on a Windows-based machine, so I do not have Safari. I don't know.
Safari is the new IE for Mac users.
There you go.
Yeah. But full channel, we're talking about test automation. So John has a web app, and that's hosted with Sitefinity, and he's trying to push out some changes and trying to get his sanity as the changes roll out. So he's got some test automation.
What little I can keep, right? Yeah. Just again, really just running a blanket of tests across my site, both functional and again, what is often maybe referred to as smoke. Is this behaving the way I intended to? And again, I prefer to call them sanity checks because what little I do have left, I don't want to take the time to click through all these different elements to make sure I visually saw what I expected to see, right? Let the test studio run that test on an execution. We can look at results over time, things like reports. So here's some stuff that I've been running locally.
Fancy.
Yeah. So most of this is probably run locally, but you can see some of these were run across the staging server here. So I ran the staging tests from my local, but they also get executed in that pipeline in Azure DevOps as well. So yeah, 88% of the time I'm passing. I'll take a B. Anybody gonna give me a B? My parents probably would have paid me out in high school for that, so it'd have been fine. Well, that's a spoiled brat thing, huh?
No, tell me you can get graphs like this out of your Azure runs.
We can definitely get them, on the individual basis, and you can see some execution over time. So if we go back here, one more. All right. So this was the most recent run of the tests. So past one, 5 unique failing tests in the last 14 days. So Azure does give you some value add features. Pass percentage for this particular run was about 16%, and how long it took to run it as well.
Yeah, not as fancy as Test Studio graphs.
Not quite. Not quite.
You still get the info.
Yep.
And you could do this all through like GitHub Actions as well, right?
Assumedly, I drink right from the Microsoft champagne bottle, so I'm just going to assume the answer is yes. But yeah,
yes. The answer is always yes.
Answer is always yes.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's
probably
all Microsoft
same
these days, right?
Yeah, I mean, the cloud is just somebody else's computer, right? GitLab, again, assumedly same types of functionality there. You could execute pipelines. The Arta test runner itself is really just installed on a Windows-based machine and executes the test. When you install Test Studio here, I have it. I can run the CLI here locally and make sure that it behaves the way I expect it to as well.
Full Schnabel is saying all pipelines are nightmares.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
now this one here, Fujinamel, I will say this is complicated. Yes, GitHub is Microsoft, but internally, I think they're run as different organizations
Yeah, I would
a
agree.
little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe kind of like Progress does sometimes with our products, but for the most part, we play all like Peter and ourselves. We play in what we call the DX span of Progress itself, where I work mostly on Sitefinity, but obviously dabble a bit in the other aspects of things like Test Studio or Dev Tools. I again am more of a .NET developer, so I use the core functionalities or the Ajax tools or those types of things, which Sam, I know you like to play in every once in a while.
I love Ajax. Now,
Yeah.
here's the $1,000,000 question, though. For your things in Azure pipelines, how much YAML did you have to write?
I didn't write any YAML.
There you go.
No.
So it's all
Exactly.
point
That's
and
the
click.
GitHub thing.
Yeah,
So
I
plug
didn't.
and play.
YAML.
Yeah, I didn't write any YAML to do this itself. Luckily, could I? Probably, but no. I use I just use the visual. I mean, obviously there's YAML behind the scenes, but oops, I clicked one too many times here. But yeah, I didn't. I just used the visual builder here and did my steps. So yeah, I mean, obviously again, there's YAML behind the scenes, but
you're not a professional nerd anymore, John. I'm
I got
disappointed.
downgraded. But yeah, as you see here, yeah, using an Azure running agent pool here. You could obviously use your own agents. You can, whatever you want. But in this case, I'm using just the Azure hosted one, Windows 2019, and install a few things and run my tests.
So that's where you're also specifying like what the agent will actually use. Like the Windows like server is what it's using 2019. Oh, there it is. Oh, look at that. Ubuntu's Mac
Oh
OS.
yeah.
Interesting.
I don't know anything but Microsoft, so don't ask me what these other things mean.
Yeah. I mean, these are essentially, shared VMs that are, they just, buy you a little
Oh
bit
yeah,
of time on that VM to run your script, and that's it.
absolutely. Yeah, no. Yeah, definitely different flavors there. And in this case, for the Arta test runner, we execute an MSI, so to install it on the Windows install there.
Yeah, pipelines are fun. So, John, anything else? Oh, no, I have a burning question, though. Why does your test case say bruschetta at the bottom?
So when here, yeah. So when I recorded it, that was the element that was there. So when I was clicking through, so it not only will match like DOM literal things, it will do some image matching as well. Now I've gone through and tried to change most of my labeling to be more suited for this dynamic nature of the test. So I probably should come in here and say, visualize instead of the because it's not, it'll still keep the image there, but it could be anything, right? It does try to fall back on that at some point. You can turn on and off that particular feature. But I'm really more interested in what the DOM has to say here versus the actual visual representation. You may be more inclined to only want the visual representation, and there's ways to do sort of both scenarios. So verify, first food element is visible is probably what mine should say. Now, when I execute this test, it'll then use that as the name in the UI, especially headless. This is quite important. Let's see if we can, let's take a real quick, we're going to do maybe one more test here. I'm going to go and let's see if I have it here. Okay, we're going to try a functional test here. Now, I'm going to go full disclosure on this one. I haven't run it in a while, so we're going to see what's happening. I may have changed the form since then. I don't really remember, right? But this is going to be a full-on functional test. It's a Sitefinity form. Basically, we're going to go through all these steps here and ensure that we get the thank you message in the end. That's really simplifying it. But it's going to type in content. It's going to do stuff. It's going to submit stuff, hopefully, right? That's the goal here. And I honestly, guys, I have no idea what's going to happen. So I'm going with let's see what happens here. So again, hands off, stepping away. We're going to execute this particular test and see what happens. Now, this is a complicated form built within the Sitefinity UI. So we have a form builder, right? And again, I want to ensure that this form is functionally working, right? I enter text, went through a bunch of steps, and got an okay result in the end. So we've navigated to this page. You can see no hands.
Mm-hmm.
It's like riding your bike for the first time that way. This is what you got to do, right? I'm not using hands. All right, let's see what happens. So it looks like it's taken a little bit longer than expected in this particular step. So I actually happen to know it's going to fail. And for some particular reason, and we'll have to figure that out, it didn't click the next button. And again, we can troubleshoot that in a number of different ways. I'll leave some of the troubleshooting step up to Peter here in a moment. But it's going to count down for another, 10 seconds here. And then give me the explosion, right? It didn't pass for whatever reason. This could be development related. In fact, I'm going to say probably, something changed on this form that's causing the test not to execute appropriately. So we got through. Basically, in the end, it was expecting this here on the left-hand side. Okay, a thank you for your application, and it didn't result. I just happened to notice it never made it to the next step. And again, we need to go back and figure out why. We saw it do a bunch of this stuff. It entered text, again, for whatever reason, that next button didn't trigger appropriately. Maybe I changed the styling on it and it's visually checking it. Maybe I changed the ID or who knows, right? There could be a number of different aspects to it. We can use tools. And again, we're going to more deeps. I can resolve it all right through the visual tools of Test Studio itself. So again, I wanted to prove to the point that I do not have a perfect application here, and I got some work to do. So, all right, I'm going to walk away and do the work.
I didn't know this. There's also visual tooling. Like I see like page DOM,
Yep.
copy export. So you can go back and fix it visually as well.
Absolutely. Yep. You can even have it integrated with your, project management. So submitting a bug isn't submitting a bug to Test Studio, the software vendor. This is submitting a bug internally, right? So you may have it integrated with, again, DevOps, because I drink that champagne, right? I could export the results, I could copy it, but yeah, I could actually look at the page DOM to see what was going on at the particular point in time. And then even gives me suggestions on how I might resolve these particular situations. Yep. I think this is probably a good opportunity for me to pass it off to the expert in all things Test Studio, my colleague.
You make me ponder now who is the expert, by the way, John.
I was scared you were going to say me for a second.
No, it's definitely Ed. Yeah.
I didn't mention any names. Yeah.
This is like that Jedi moment, right? Where the what am I if I'm not the I'm now better than the teacher kind of thing, or ninja moment. I don't know how that works, but yeah, I mean, I learned all this from Peter. I'm not hearing this alone. So, all right, let me.
This is good stuff, though. This is good stuff. I mean, you're showing off very real dev cycles, and
right.
As you're getting ready to push out updates, you have a batch of test scripts that you could run that do the smoke test for you. And it's nice to see that you can actually customize per environment, so you can have the same test with a different base URL. It's running on a different environment. Very cool.
And that's where it definitely, different environments are definitely a thing. Like, it works on my machine, right? Like, I used to have a buddy that had a T-shirt that said that, and he wore it to the office on Fridays when we were doing our deployments. Or, I'm kidding, we don't do them on Fridays. Saw Ed's comment earlier. But he would, works on my machine, right? It's a common thing. So obviously you're going to test these locally, but as you promote to different environments, it's a possibility that they may behave differently. And again, this really does help me keep my particular sanity, or what's left of it, as mentioned earlier.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, Peter, we are ready for you whenever you're ready.
Yep. Thanks, gents. And I guess I have to share my screen first.
Yeah.
So we could do a little bit magic text to technology and share. Yep. There we go.
I see it.
You should be able to see the entire plethora of my Chrome tabs and a little bit of Test Studio. there. But before we start, actually, thanks, John. You did a lot of what I was supposed to do, and actually, thank you for that. Thank you for easing our lives. We passed a few levels of hell there with one step. Yeah, a few more
Right.
remaining, and I actually had only one question for you. Not joking, and yeah, I mean, do you even test, bro?
Ah.
But you managed to answer it and show it, and 1 hour went away. So no more question for you, man.
Yeah, I got the people proven progress sweater on today. So
nice one.
I love that shirt. Yeah. And then there are so many, iterations of this. Like, do you even lint, bro? Just like, I
No,
mean,
that's cool.
yeah, we're not like trying to pander to the bro culture that we sometimes have in tech, but these are funny shirts.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the whole idea today actually was to literally is our lives and go through the levels of hell of good old Dante's. So of course, it doesn't matter if you are changing your environment or if you're redeploying or if you're upgrading your Sitefinity instance. I guess it's pretty tough to do it or not, or even, I don't know, change a banner in your marketing campaign and move it 1 pixel to the left and scramble everything thanks to that. So testing, and actually not testing, quality checks or health checks or quality assurance or smoke tests or whatever you want to call it, are important, especially on the functional UI side. Are they mandatory? Of course not. You can do it like that. We will be nice if you mess up something, especially on production, especially on the weekends, especially when you are on vacation. Not, and that's where the testing and the quality checks come into handy. Right? You can do this manually by clicking here and there, or you can automate it. Like during the biggest portion of the session, John's hands were up, right? So he didn't touch anything. This is what this quality check automation is all about. You do some kind of configurations and stuffs in advance, and you could repetitively execute them as many times as you want on whatever environment as you want, 24/7. So this is the idea of toasting automation, and Test Studio, as if I'm to describe it in one sentence in a few seconds, is a testing UI testing platform, allows you to automate this functional quality checks of of your Sitefinity instances. For example, the products you built with Sitefinity, right? And of course, it's not limited to Sitefinity only. Anything that runs in a browser, as I like to say, can be automated with a tool like Test Studio. And what you see, by the way, on the screen, you already saw the fancy graphs and charts John displayed. You can also access this, by the way, via a URL. So it's an interactive, dynamic, as you can see, it's refreshing automatically at some point of time. Dashboard that all you need to do is share the URL with whoever is interested from your organization or outside of it, and show them the health of your projects per project, of course, because you might have multiple projects that are monitored by Test Studio. And of course, you can build fancy report definitions with, oh, that's a cool graph, with fancy graphs and charts, and share them with whoever you want. So you're not limited only to your DevOps instance or to the Test Studio tool itself. You could outsource those reporting capabilities as well. What I wanted to show you now, guys, because I don't know for you, it's Sam, you mentioned it's lunchtime. For me, it's actually dinner time, and so much coriander and smoking and barbecues. I'm really getting hungry, not joking at all. So I was thinking on how to switch the topic a little bit and randomize, just for the sake of the show and the sake of the live streaming. I was thinking how we can randomize and do some tests out of the blue without any additional beforehand preparation. And talking about that, I managed to isolate a few scenarios. Hopefully, yeah, we have time. Hopefully, I could show you the majority of them, if not all of them. What do I mean by randomizing? Imagine that there are different folks in the audience now. There are developers, there are marketing guys. There are people that are not that much into programming or even testing and automation or even technology per se, but we want to ease your lives and our lives, of course. So instead of making you copy or do whatever I and John did during the session today, I was trying to make a universal script or scenario that is a kind of a plug and play. Of course, 100% plug and play do not exist, I think, anywhere in any technology, but still the idea is to have something beforehand, have something ready, and just change a word or so, and have these automated health checks, those automated scripts or tests, whatever you want to call them, run as you do the changes in your CMS. And thus you can increase your quality.
Peter, two questions. One is that's funny. Foolish Amazon. It's plug and pray. Yeah, you sometimes have to pray. You broke my heart a little bit by saying it's only for web apps, but I mean you can do desktop apps testing with Studio, right? Yeah,
absolutely. WPF, WinForms, whoever is still aware of Delphi or using it, you can do Delphi as well. So basically, you can automate web, desktop, and even responsive web apps. By the way, some
nice. That's going to make Ed happy. And then the Test Studio dashboard that you briefly showed off. Can you use that with any other pipeline, or is this something that you have to have your tests in a certain part of the cloud with Test Studio?
A very good question. It works out of the box with the tests that reside within the Test Studio instance, right? And talking about Test Studio instance, it means a separate installation that you may have on whatever machine you want. It's not only limited to, for example, in your example with John's cool case with Microsoft Azure hosted agent. Actually, you could have a self-hosted agent and run your tests there. So, but since all of those runtimes talk to the mothership, to the main Test Studio installation that you can see on my screen. By the way, the data that comes from the mothership from here is displayed into the dashboard, right? Exclusively.
Yeah, makes sense. All right. Sorry to get you distracted, but go ahead.
It was a cool question, by the way, especially on the different technologies, web and desktop and responsive. I still like to say, if you want to run your application on, I don't know, not only a tablet or a mobile device, but I don't know, it's very popular, fridges, washing machines, whatever can run an application today in responsive, web responsive mode, I'm pretty sure we could automate it for you with Test Studio. So to going back to my idea here, to switch a little bit away from food and coriander lane here and related, I picked up those winners for the Sitefinity Website of the Year Awards 2023, and I separated them into a little Excel file here. So how many do we have here? 11. Assigned an ID for each of them, and a little bit further during throughout the session, for the sake of the show itself, I'm going to make Test Studio pick again automatically any by absolutely randomized principle any of those IDs from 1 to 11 associated to the corresponding URL, open this URL, and we could try to record a little script with Test Studio and go through the basics of it. Right. The other thing that I wanted to show you is this a little universal way of making sure that you can run quick small core sanity checks for your websites without the necessity of building them from scratch. Talking about building something from scratch in Test Studio, it doesn't matter if you're avid developer or not. You could use both words here. You can words here. You can use the so-called point and click recorder, meaning that literally you open your website with Test Studio and click here and there, something that you're gonna see, and Test Studio is going to generate a script. Or if you're a geek like John, for example, you can generate everything from scratch from code. You can see a few lines of code here as well on my end, and you can do those scripts as well. So both options are possible, but as I mentioned, I don't even want to make you do that. I want to give you the script, the scenario itself, so you can plug and play and pray that it will work for your application. And this is something that I wanted to show you here. So when we have in mind sanity and smokes or whatever, we want to make sure that our application, that our website works, right? No brainer. We want to make sure that our application, that you can log in. You can enter your user and password and click on the login button. We want to make sure that you can click somewhere, right? Anywhere on your website, on any page possible. And of course, talking about clicks, you can automate whatever mouse or keyboard actions you want. Left clicks, right clicks, double clicks. You can automate the scrolling of the mouse wheel, or you can do the hover over, right? And that's why I want to show you those 3 cool scripts here in my Sitefinity project folder, and how they can ease your life. They're entered by code, but they're done by code. But as I mentioned, you don't actually need to do anything. Actually, I can share it to you. And if you have Test Studio or a trial of Test Studio or any instance of Test Studio installed, you can just play it with yourself. What we're going to do now is navigate to a website, right? One of those.
Peter, can you bump up your Visual Studio fonts just a tad, please?
Yeah. By the way, this is a valid feedback. This is Test Studio.
Oh, this is Test Studio. I'm sorry.
This is not a Visual Studio. So I guess for the folks there, if you can zoom it on your end, it would be a good way, because I'm not sure if I can do. There we go. Sorry.
Yeah, I think Ed helped there. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. All right. So what are we gonna do? I'm gonna simulate the hover over for a website, right? With the mouse, and hover over a specific word, whether it's going to be a login, on sign in, or one of those that your customers or your would do every day, all the time. Right. For that, of course, I managed to take a look at the websites here and find a good one. So let's say that you are this educational organization here, and you wanna test how your login works. The first point of business would be to hover over. This is how the website works, of course. To hover over the login option and then select one of those guys here. So what do we have? If we're using English, of course, it doesn't matter which language it is, then Test Studio can overcome this. So if you're using English, we're gonna look for an element with a text content that says something similar to login, right? Find it. If it is actionable, it's going to perform the corresponding action, and there you go. So what you could actually do is if you have this predefined script
Also,
here.
but by the way, I would just like to point out that Peter is flexing by showing you actual code here, John. Like this is the coded step. This is how it looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Coded
I
steps are
can't
pretty
do,
cool.
no, can't do it. Nope, I gotta just point and click.
No,
They're pretty
I'm
cool,
just
though. I've
using
worked with these before.
using copy paste and replacing a few values. Here you don't need to do anything from scratch. You could you can input whatever website you want here,
I
right?
think it's worth mentioning
sorry,
too.
Ed,
Like
Ed, you were saying something.
there's a JavaScript interrupt behind this too. If you need to write some JavaScript for something, you can get into that.
Absolutely. Yeah, and crossing fingers, build successful, the dream of every developer, right? So no errors here. Let's see. Execution. By the way, you can slow down the speed. John showed you the regular execution of the scripts. The scripts there. There is an extremely cool and fast way to execute them headless. Not to be mistaken or partially be mistaken with the headless mode of Sitefinity, but headless execution for web script here means that everything runs on the background. You don't see what's happening on your screen, right? And no browser is opened, right? So thus the speed is definitely greater. And this is the recommended way, by the way, to run the majority of the smoke tests when you have your pipelines triggered, so that you don't lose that much time.
Now, Peter, when you're doing it here, like it's still going to run it locally, right? Just headless.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so you
locally on my machine.
okay. So you might see some lights flicker, while it's doing it. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. I have no idea, by the way, why this happens. I noticed it as well, but this is the risk of the live broadcast, but if you want, by the way, if you want to execute tests, when you execute tests and schedule them actually for automatic execution, you can spread those to execute on whatever machine, external machine you want. For the sake of the cool demonstration today, everything happens on my beautiful Ryzen 7 here. But you can diverse this if you want and spread it on different machines, right? Okay, so let me switch on the slowest speed with the so-called annotations, which means that with yellow annotations on the screen, you're gonna see what will happen, right? What I'm gonna do is maximize the browser automatically, of course, and then I'm going to run the test. It should navigate to the website. Hands up, as John likes to say. The speed is definitely slower. As you can see here, the annotator navigates to the website, and then it would try to find the login and hover over it, right? And from there, as we like to say, sky is the limit. You can go further, go down the different login options and that kind of stuff, right? And continue recording, right? This was about hover over, right? But what about the universal clicks or sign-ins or logins? Like everybody wants to do it. Let's say I provide you guys with this readily available web test, right? Already coded. No need to touch anything. All you need to do is enter your website, right? Which has an actionable button, and I found one cool actionable button here. It's one of those winning websites that can help you find the credit union near me, right? So let's grab it. We grab the URL. We go to the test, substitute the URL, and then try to find the button, right? I suck at regex, so I'm going to look for something on the screen that starts with find only. There you go. your configuration is done. And if I run the test now, Test Studio will go and click on this button automatically. You don't need to do anything yourself. There we go. Navigate and click on the button. All right. So this is literally the most highly optimized way to use your live with a minimum configuration. As you can see, just plug your website URL and the button name that you want to find, and Test Studio will do the magic for you. Of course, you can do all of this from scratch, record it yourself, and this is what I wanted to show you. I still think we have a few more seconds. A few more minutes on the streaming, so we could do that. As I promised, I isolated all of those websites here in my beautiful Excel. I'm going to grab one of the IDs associated to the URL, and then we can start doing everything from scratch. So running the test, I can switch off the annotators, so it's quicker. It's quicker now, and let's see where Test Studio will take us. Hands up, maybe.
So at this point, like, you're asking it to, look into that Excel file and just randomly choose any one of those 11 sites, and then look for what exactly, like a login button?
No, just I'm going to build a totally random scenario, some kind of recording a test against the application, right? Just to make sure that we haven't prepared anything.
You're randomly picking a Sitefinity test site of the year, and now you're gonna show the glory of point and click, right?
Yeah, exactly. No coding here at all, right?
Yeah.
And because as a QA, I always want to prove everything at any point of time. You can see the walk here that we picked up number 6, which is this website here, Palmer Gas. But in order to make sure that nothing is rigged, again, as a QA, I can run this again. So we pick up another website, or maybe the same website 2 times in a row. Who knows what the random class will do? Yay! Welcome to Kensington, another website that was open. So this is how you start your journey with Test Studio, folks, from scratch, right? You navigate to your website, or you open your desktop application or your responsive application and start creating those sanity checks and smoke tests that later on you can run and make sure everything is fine. And what you can see on the screen is the so-called point and click recorder. You now literally opened your website via Test Studio. All the clicks that you do, the cookie consent, right, will be, any click will be recorded as a step.
So to be clear, all of the fancy code, we were obviously just flexing our code muscle, right?
Yes.
Just so we could pick somebody's website that we could show off some. Now this is where John Reed enters Test Studio, right? This is where I go in and I click and I record. All the other stuff was just for fun, just so we could randomly pick one of our winners, so we could record them a test, right? Okay.
Gotcha. And your way too modest, John, but more or less yes.
Yeah.
You're right.
So now, this is how I use
palette in here as well for like manual like verifications and things that aren't part of the point and click recorder experience. Like if you want to check for like JavaScript errors on the page, you can just like drag that command in from the step builder.
Absolutely. You can check the console for errors. You can clear the browser cache. You can maximize, minimize the browser. You could have execution delays, right? You could do a coded step, of course. naturally flexing.
I
Open
love
PDF.
Step Builder. I've
Oh,
used this before.
yeah. Open PDF files, and this is very cool, by the way, manual step, because a lot of websites, especially government, financial, educational, sometimes you have to run and you have to log in with your AD, right? Domain, user, and password, and if not almost everyone has two-factor authentication, right? So I'm not aware of any solution into the non-shady business that can automate two-factor authentication, right? So manual steps gives you this kind of a break or pause from your automated script, so you can go and press the approve button on your mobile device or enter the number or whatever you want, or whatever your 2FA works, right? So with even the manual configuration step, we give you this pause you do, and then the script can continue executing automatically. So we got you covered with this, and indeed the step builder is one wonderful option here.
Yeah, I don't think we want to get into the business of automating two-factor authentication. And if full travel is right, I think like Kensington, the one that you pulled up, is about mortgages. Yeah, rates are how's for people buying this year. I did have two questions for you, Peter.
Tell me.
All right. So first up, when you pulled up this site, there was the cookie warning, right? Now, if you were doing, just record all of my clicks, do you have an option of, you're making something optional because the next time you hit it, maybe you accepted all the cookies, you're not going to see it. So how do you make something, optional?
Absolutely. Amazingly valid question. You have the options you have two options. Like if I am to do it, I would flex a little bit. Again, use the step builder and also include out of the box some conditional testing. Right, you guys, developers, your favorite if clauses and stuff, but here you don't need to write any single line of code, right? You have the if else clause here, and depending on the verification, you can say verify the accept cookies button is not on the screen. If it's not on the screen, continue further. If it is on the screen, click on it so you continue. Right, so you can insert this literally drag and droppable if else clause. You can drag the click action inside or outside, or I could decide to clear or not clear the browser cache every time I rerun the test. If I clear the browser cache every time I run it, the button will always be there, right? So I will be totally fine and click it, right? And of course you have another option, which is called the toggle continue on failure, which is quite risky, right? I would not play that much with it. It really depends on the case, but as it is with the cookies button, I would really just click continue on failure, continue if it's not there, and move on with the test, right, for it. Okay.
Makes sense. Now, Peter, what's the difference between running things with full automation, locally, versus running it headless? Like, how much percentage of speed are we talking about?
It really depends on the connectivity type of application and whatnot. But if I'm to say something on average, right, from 3 to 5 times quicker.
Wow.
Is the time that you can save with going into headless mode in Chrome or Chromium Edge. But it's not that fun because you're not going to see anything on the screen. You're not going to see how the studio does the click automatically and that. But 3 to 5 times, I think we could shake hands on that.
Yeah. Now, when you are doing things in Azure pipelines, like the way John had it set up, like is it always headless, or like is there any point of doing with the graphics, with the visuals?
It's configurable for smoke tests. Something that I really, if I run the pipelines that frequently, I would go to the headless mode for the sake of time. But it is totally configurable. There is we can go into that many technical details now. It's not the time now, but the so-called test lists, actually the entity that you execute in your Azure pipelines, right? The test lists are containers for the test. From the settings, you can say I want them to be executed in a headless mode or not, right? Or I want you to execute them first in Edge, then go in Chrome, then you go to our favorite Firefox, and then do the headless if you want. So it's a matter of configuration.
But like, who's watching it? If this is in pipeline, like you're not in the VM.
Absolutely, no one.
Yeah,
no one.
I see.
You just rewrite that it's a bulletproof. You just rewrite that it's a bulletproof test, and building a bulletproof test might take some time. I can be completely honest with you. I wish it's plug and play, but you might need to do some configurations. But once you do them, and once you know that the test executes flawlessly, you would have this trust into the script, and you can rest assured that everything is stable, and why not going the headless mode?
Yeah, because this also, it's funny, foolish. I'm just saying a headless is how, right? Like, just don't use your head. Don't use your brain. Because like if you specify Safari as your browser and then you're running it on a Windows test agent, you're not going to be able to run it.
Correct me if I'm wrong. You can still install Safari on Windows machine, or with some magic, or not.
Are we talking Hackintosh? I don't think you can.
Yeah. Me neither. So, but it's a valid point, right? Because even if you test your website on different browsers, there are differences. I personally did some geek tests. For example, the orange, or one of the hues of the orange color, it's not the same on Chrome compared to the other browsers. So if you want to make sure that everything is smooth and identical, your script will fail if you want to be 100% precise that you have this exact orange color, for example. But that's the beauty of it. You make sure with one script that you're compatible with every single browser except for Safari on Windows, as we discussed.
So Safari is still available for Windows, but you're locked into a very old version of it.
Yeah.
Really? I don't know that.
So it'd be like installing IE6 or something.
So if you can do that, you can run the test on this version of Safari as well. I don't have it here. Great. So talking just this interesting fun fact, by the way, talking about browsers, we support with the latest changes upcoming for the different browsers, we support both extension and extensionless testing, which means that you don't need to do any configurations into the browsers beforehand. If you run the extensionless testing there, we can talk about the real plug and play for that, right? So where were we? Showing you something cool. So basically that's the deal. All the clicks, everything you do is recorded as a action, clicking on this tag and whatever. But if you really want to go further, you can have so many cool perks and features. Maybe John, we can organize another session here.
King agrees.
Just showing that. Look what I'm doing, guys, at the moment, right? I'm hovering over every single element part of my website, and Test Studio automatically recognizes it, right? And against that, you could do multiple actions. This little hamburger button, the SVG tag,
I thought you said no more food talk.
Yeah, I know.
Hamburgers now.
Apologies. Yeah, I said that on purpose. Yeah, but I can recognize it. I can actually recognize different wines into that. Cool. So I can do verifications. Verify the element is here on the screen. Verify it's visible or not visible. Wait up until the element exists on the screen or votes or whatever. Extract it. I can record different types of actions, mouse actions, left click or right click, hover over, scrolls on it, etc. And I can go into the absolutely identical, absolutely technical way of doing verification up to the specific style, attributes, fonts, whatever, and do verifications against them. But we don't want to go there. Right now we're talking about the ease of running some cool smoke and sanity checks for your website without the necessity to go into much hassle. But if you want to do it, you can do it.
I mean, this is absolutely my favorite part of the whole thing, right? I mean, again, I do love to write some code, but I can just literally click around, confirm, look, is this element visible? If you do have certain things like your, in your main navigation, right? You expect your logo to always be there, right? In your footer navigation, you expect, the core parts of your business to expect a certain level of text. You can say, is this element there, right? Is the text match this? And you run that, at the beginning of all. It's wonderful. Like I don't have to code a thing unless I want to, right?
Absolutely.
That's my favorite part.
Not everybody's a developer that touches this stuff either. I mean, you've got QA folks that maybe aren't developer minded, and they don't have to have a instance of like Visual Studio or like, you know what I mean?
Nope.
You don't have to license Visual Studio Enterprise to get access to writing
correct
QA tests.
Correct. Everything happens from Test Studio. You can do it from the mothership, as I like to say. This entire instance is just a small WPF desktop application, Test Studio, that you install on whatever premise you want on your end, and you can use it without Visual Studio, right, out of the box.
Quick question here for Ed and John. In Sitefinity, the UI part of my app, can it include things like Kendo UI, widgets, or MVC widgets like Telerik widgets on my UI front?
Yes, please, absolutely.
And when you do that, like this is like friends with benefits. Like, do we not know our grids a little better than just a regular grid in Test Studio?
Yeah, I mean, that Test Studio has specific use and will allow you to configure, right? If you're using Kendo elements. In fact, if you navigated to Coriander Lane, we use Kendo elements on our location finder, and it says, hey, it basically recognizes that it's a Kendo element and allows me to do different types of verifications for it.
Yep. We can recognize our own UI components with the translators. Everything is configurable from the tool so that we know that we're the same vendor. And we give you a little bit of more perks if we detect that you're using the same UI and the same testing solution for that.
Yeah, this is a lot. Very, very good stuff.
Peter, can you keep recording some tests there? Because it's my favorite part.
It is. Oh, you're so.
You know it is.
You won't let me go to dinner, John. But
Also, by the way, Peter, chat room.
Go back to the food website. Let's look at some more
Silverlight checkbox.
The Silverlight checkbox.
Yeah.
Yep, we do have them, the translators. And by the way, it's not only Test Studio, but only on the DevTools side, on the UI components. As a vendor, we still support UI for Silverlight.
Now you're talking to my side of the family, so yeah. I mean, not everybody is off Silverlight, so that's the reality for a lot of people.
So, if you want to find a live Silverlight, Welcome to Progress Telerik, right? So maybe John, we could run another website here, and actually even remove the entire flex from here and start from scratch, like literally from scratch. Add a web test, give it a friendly name like web test 1, the best friendly name.
friendly. Yes.
So friendly name here. Click record, right? And you can record a something part of your some mentioned MVC, right? Let's pretend the front end is decoupled and we need to record against the .NET MVC application, right? So you open it with Test Studio, this beautiful grid here, and of course we value your privacy every time. And what do we have here? We have the backend. We have the backend for some food and beverages. Sorry, John. I mean, this was not intentional.
Hey,
but again,
we love food. I mean, we're not gonna, we're not trying to hide anything from anybody, you know.
Definitely, honestly, it's serve, right? And I wanna check. I wanna change. I want to check the pricing. I want to update that, right? And I want to make sure that everything displays correctly on my website when I mess up with the backend, right? So I want to edit the tea, the chai, right? I want to increase the price. Nowadays,
I do like the consciousness that we don't say chai tea latte because chai literally means tea.
Yeah, I read somewhere if it is delivered by sea, it's called tea. If it's delivered by land, it's called chai. And that was like back in the days, you know. But I can't say it's correct or not, right? Don't take my words for granted. All right. And also in Bulgarian, by the way, it's called chai as well. Pretty universal. So I want to decrease the unit in stock and that kind of stuff, and I want to make sure that everything is fine. My price is increased. I did all the recording steps, and something cool. John, is my price really 19? Right?
I don't know.
Am I lying here?
Find out.
Neither. That's why I like to do some verifications and stuff right on top. Or if my units in stock is correct. And all of this happens thanks again to the advanced recording options from Test Studio here. As you can see, can you see that the color is not red anymore? It's orange. It means that we have recognized our own UI components, this beautiful Kendo data grid cell right here. And I can ask Test Studio, be so kind to let me know if the value of this cell is $19. And if I run the test now, actually, I can run not only the entire script, but this is something that's a great time saver. I can run just a portion of the script while I am recording it, meaning that I'm saving time again. I can verify, I can insert my scripts while I'm building them, and when I'm done, I'm really done, right? So I can say, Test Studio, please be so kind to verify that to run only this specific step, and it can tell you in a second. It can tell you if you're correct or not. And there we go. You know me already. As a QA, I may want to double check this and make sure everything is fine. And I can say Test Studio, make sure that the value is not 19, for example, and run it one more time, right? And see what's going to happen. Or I can run some regex or whatever, and there we go, right, with it. And it failed because the value obviously is 19 on the screen. So verifications are really important. I would always suggest any few clicks, action steps designated by those beautiful icons are followed by assertion or validation verification step, that so that you make sure that you are into the correct portion of your application. And also thanks to the verifications, you can use them into conditions, again, without the necessity of doing any code. Verify if the value is 19, do some clicks, increase the price, for example, right? Drop inside the if else, and I'm doing this from my trackpad, and it's really difficult to do it without a proper mouse. But anyways, else decrease the
My
price.
cat got the mouse from me, didn't he?
Yeah. Else do some other click, right? There we go. I managed to do it. And by the end of the day, doing while creating those action points with the proper verifications, you could have one beautiful end-to-end quick script that can go play with the food and beverages, do some configurations, and then verify them and make sure that everything is fine. Or just a quick note here, it's worthy of not another webinar, but maybe more webinars. You could even do some RPA, robot processing and that kind of stuff. Let's pretend that you have a blank. Let's pretend that you have a blank screen, a blank backend, and you want to populate all this data entry. You can hire someone to do it for you manually, of course, or you can automate it with a tool like Test Studio. How? Find out in part 2, as they like to say in the movies, right? Or
to be continued.
Yeah, to be continued. Or just feed all of this data from Excel file, right? Or real database, whatever XML, whatever you can hook as a data source, right? Here CSV, whatever, and Test Studio will read it and will automatically populate all of this data, every single row, every single column, every single value for you, and then it can verify it, of course. Yeah.
Very, very cool.
Yeah, and I think we're pretty much done with the food for today.
Yeah, I can see Jonathan.
I was gonna say we could bake our cake and eat it too, right?
Yeah, Jonathan's gonna run to every Sitefinity customer and like, can you not see the benefit of this? Like, do it right now.
Pretty sure.
Yeah. No, very, very cool. Yeah. So Jonathan, Peter, thank you so much for teaching us all the things. Ed and me live in our little worlds, and we don't always think about the bigger picture of rolling out updates and test automation. So this was very beneficial.
Of course, yeah. Always a pleasure hanging out with you guys.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So I think you two have successfully made all of us hungry. So it's almost lunchtime for me and Ed, and dinner time for you, Peter.
Yep, definitely.
All right, and folks in the chat room.
Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and raid over to Primeagen.
Okay. Yep.
So,
and I was going to say, chat room, Full Schnabel in particular, thanks for hanging out with us. It's been a pleasure. And let's go do the raid, and take care, everybody.
We've got the Primeagen over there talking about TypeScript. He's very entertaining. Cool. So thanks for hanging out with us, and say hello on his channel when you get there.
Yeah.
But
be well, and we'll see you on the next
later
stream.
on Code It Live.
Yeah.
Thank you, folks.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All right, we're out.